Number 10. New species of pterosaur. In the past, reptiles ruled, and in the past, flying reptiles patrolled the sky. While now we have birds, believe it or not, 100 million years ago there were flying reptiles living in the Sahara Desert, in the region of the world that is now Morocco. This was a recent discovery by scientists who uncovered 4 new species of pterosaur. The discovery was made by a paleontologist at the University of Portsmouth, along with the science team that helped with his research. They found that the 3 new species of flying reptiles were much like the other pterosaurs in Africa and on other continents. The airborne predators flew through the skies in a time when the Earth was populated by some of the most dangerous dinosaurs that ever lived, but their main diet was apparently fish. They basically flew around all day and fed on fish from the ocean, much like modern eagles. However, these flying reptiles were way larger. Pterosaurs had wingspans of between 9 and 12 feet, that's between 3 and 4 meters, making them extremely huge. They had super sharp teeth and could snatch fish right out of the air while sailing above the surface of the ocean. What would you do if you saw a flock of these pterosaurs circling your house? Do you think they would try to eat you if they could? Let me know what you'd do if these species came back in the comments below. And while you're doing that, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There are all kinds of amazing videos coming out all the time with fun facts you won't want to miss. Number 9. Hammerhead salamander. There has been a lot of talk lately about the hammerhead salamander. This is all because of some photos that have surfaced of what appears to be a prehistoric salamander with a head like a hammerhead shark. It does look like something that could be alive today, and it is in fact a real animal. The problem with all these photos is that the hammerhead salamander, also sometimes known as the boomerang salamander, went extinct about 270 million years ago. The photos you may have seen in your feed lately are actually photos of a model, which was created by a Japanese sculptor. Still, the hammerhead salamander is a pretty cool extinct critter. They were extremely large amphibians that roamed around the planets from between 360 million years ago and 270 million years ago when they went extinct. And yes, its oddly shaped head does kind of make it look like an alien. But we still see the boomerang-shaped head in nature even now. In fact, the head of the mata turtle looks exactly the same as this salamander's. Why do they have such a strange shaped head? It actually helps them with their vision, as these creatures can see better to their sides and behind them. It makes it harder for predators to catch these animals unaware. Number 8. Prehistoric badger. A scientist in Denver has helped in the discovery of a new and strange mammal species that once walked with dinosaurs about 66 million years ago. This crazy looking beast is an awful lot like a modern badger. 66 million years ago, it would have wandered around the forests and plains of Madagascar, somehow managing to avoid being wiped out by giant crocodiles and enormous snakes. But like almost all other large species of the time, it eventually perished in the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous period alongside the poor and unfortunate dinosaurs. However, nobody knew about this mammal's existence until a recent international team of researchers led by a paleontologist out of Denver dug up its bones. Its discovery was announced just recently in 2020, and it serves as an important clue for how animals evolved on islands millions of years ago. The proper name for this creature is Adulatherium, which translates to crazy beast in 2 languages. Its skeleton is the biggest and most complete out of any mammal ever found from that time in the southern hemisphere. According to the scientists, the creature would have either walked or wobbled. It was only about 20 inches long. It weighed 7 pounds, and it's the closest thing that dinosaurs would have had to a badger. In fact, it was probably prey for some of the bigger dinosaurs we know about, and likely had to hide from them every day to survive. Number 7. The Galagadon. The Galagadon is the newest and most impressive prehistoric shark discovered. And even though it is a terribly menacing shark from prehistoric times, it kind of looks like a catfish. The shark's teeth were found fossilized alongside the fossil of the most famous T-Rex skeleton ever unearthed, known as Sue the T-Rex. Sue the T-Rex is the most complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton ever found, and these weird shark teeth were found literally right beside her in the excavation site. The combination of both finds is helping scientists to put together a clearer picture of the last days of the dinosaurs. According to the Smithsonian, the shark's tiny teeth were about the size of a pinhead in their fossilized form. The really interesting part is that Sue the T-Rex and the teeth of the Galagadon were found 3 decades apart. 30 years after they had excavated the Tyrannosaurus bones, researchers went back to the same spot and searched for more fossils, thus finding the teeth of this weird shark. It got its name Galagadon because its teeth look a lot like the Space Invader characters from the 1981 arcade game Galaga. Pretty cool namesake if you ask me. Number 6. The smallest dinosaur ever. Without a doubt, this is the coolest discovery of the last decade when it comes to fossils. The tiniest bird dinosaur ever has recently been discovered trapped in a piece of amber over 99 million years old. And yeah, this bird is tiny, or at least it used to be. All that was found in the piece of amber was the skull of the bird, but it allowed researchers to put together all the information they needed. This bird was smaller than a hummingbird, and is so far among the smallest animals discovered to have ever lived in the Mesozoic era. It's also one of the oldest birds known to mankind. When paleontologists discovered the specimen, they were literally blown away. USA Today reports that the skull was found in a mine in the northern part of Myanmar. The skull itself is only about half an inch in length, while the entire bird would have weighed less than 1/10 of an ounce. That's only 2 grams. That is ridiculously tiny. The bird was given a scientific name, but it's so long and ridiculous that almost no one uses it. The official name is Oculodentavis corngray, but the name actually translates to eye-tooth bird, and this is because the skull of the bird was dominated by massive eye sockets, much like you would find on modern lizards. But what makes the bird especially cool is all its teeth. Unlike normal birds that just have beaks, this bird had about 30 teeth inside its jaw so that it could bite and chew its food properly. Imagine if a hummingbird had rows of razor-sharp teeth in its mouth. Terrifying, right? Number 5. Prehistoric turtle pig. The Bulbasaurus is one of the newest and most interesting prehistoric animals recently discovered. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because it is. Whether or not the researchers want to admit it, the Bulbasaurus sounds an awful lot like the Pokemon Bulbasaur. It even looks a little similar to its fictitious namesake. It's kind of like a mixture between a turtle and a pig. This long extinct animal would have had a beak like a turtle, tusks, and short stocky legs like a pig. According to a researcher from the Museum for Naturkunde, Berlin, there is nothing quite like them living on Earth today. Probably the closest thing to the newly discovered prehistoric turtle pig is in fact a Bulbasaur. Isn't it wild that a real prehistoric animal has almost the same name as a fictional Pokemon? I expect to see more similar discoveries named after Charmander and Pikachu very soon. Number 4. 26,000-pound dinosaur. The Earth's largest land animal has finally been discovered. Recent evidence of an animal that lived 200 million years ago points to a creature much larger than the Brontosaurus, weighing about 26,000 pounds, that's 12 tons. This beast would have been double the size of the biggest African elephant on the planet today. It has a typically confusing dinosaur name, Leduma hardimafubi, which apparently means a giant thunderclap at dawn, in the official indigenous language Sesotho, which is common where the dinosaur was found in South Africa. Obviously, the name is meant to reflect the animal's immense size. According to the bones, which were discovered back in 2012 but not properly researched until only recently, the thunderclap dinosaur is proof that evolution had already created the biggest vertebrates in history 200 million years ago. This dinosaur's closest relative is the Brontosaurus, along with other plant-eating giants of the past. However, fossil evidence shows that the dinosaur actually evolved separately from the Brontosaurus and other sauropods, making it something of an anomaly. Every branch of the evolutionary tree has its own special claim to fame, just like this giant beast. Number 3. Fossil inside a fossil. Paleontologists in China have recently discovered a fossil within a fossil. They first found an almost complete skeleton of a prehistoric marine reptile called the ichthyosaur, but they then found an extremely well-preserved reptile inside the other reptile's body. Basically, this was a 2-for-1 deal on discoveries of new species. The ichthyosaur were enormous carnivores that looked a little similar to modern dolphins, only way meaner, and they lived in the Mesozoic era. The fossil found in its stomach belonged to an even smaller reptile, something that resembled a lizard, known as a thalattosaur. Apparently, the predator died soon after ingesting the smaller animal, which is why it is so perfectly preserved. This would have happened in the middle of the Triassic period, somewhere around 240 million years ago. The reason this is such a cool recent discovery is that researchers usually have to rely on other evidence to deduce the diets of prehistoric animals. Finding the remains of a full animal inside another animal is a much better way of trying to figure out what it was eating. Also, this new evidence points to the ichthyosaur being one of the toughest predators of its time. Considering how massive the reptile was in its stomach, it was biting off much more than researchers previously thought. Number 2. The ET sponge. This story is more bizarre than it is interesting. It also doesn't have anything to do with dinosaurs. A lot of people overlook plants and other marine organisms as being life, but this is not the case. A recent discovery in the prehistoric section of the Eastern Pacific Ocean has revealed a marine creature that looks an awful lot like the alien E.T. It's being called the E.T. sponge, and it was recently classified as a whole new species. This is according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, when they announced the discovery in 2020. The entire sponge doesn't look like E.T., but the main part of the sponge floating in the water definitely looks like the alien's face. The place in which they found this weird marine creature is 2,500 meters below the surface of the ocean. It's about 850 miles southwest of Hawaii, where a strange alien community of living sponges and other bizarre marine life are peacefully floating along deep under the surface of this remote stretch of sea. While not as interesting as dinosaurs, it's still kind of cool to think that there are giant sponges that look like ET living at the bottom of the ocean. Number 1. The Big Lion, Simbacubra kutukafrika. Recently, researchers have discovered a new fearsome predator from about 22 million years ago. It's being referred to as the Big Lion, and it was much larger than any lion or tiger on the planet today. In fact, the name is a little misleading. The Big Lion is not actually a cat at all. It's part of a group of extinct animals known as hyenodonts. And while the fossils of this terrifying beast are not new, they were only recently analysed. The fossils had been sitting for decades in a drawer in the Nairobi National Museum in Kenya. Only recently did analysis show exactly how ferocious these ancient animals really were. They ate meat, they were predators and hunters, and they were bigger than polar bears. But they also existed in a pretty recent part of the Earth's history. These massive super predators would have lived on the African continent and been at the top of the food chain at the exact same time as early apes and early monkeys were slowly evolving into what would eventually become you and me. It's pretty scary to think about, but our distant ancestors probably had to run for their lives in fear of these massive creatures. Number 10. Amazonian giant centipede. There are lots of big scary animals in the Amazon, but the truth is that the scariest creatures in the biggest jungle on Earth are actually the smallest. Scorpions, centipedes, tarantulas, and all the other creepy crawlies are scarier than any jaguar or crocodile. And one of the scariest of these creepy crawlies is the giant carnivorous centipede. This thing is not only ugly and horrifying to look at, but it's also very dangerous. The centipede is red, it has 46 yellow legs, and it is the largest in the world. They are actually more commonly known as Amazonian giant centipedes because of their ridiculous size. An adult will typically grow to be around 14 inches in length, so basically the length of your forearm. Imagine a centipede almost as long as your arm wriggling across your face as you sleep. It is terrifying. Giant centipedes are indeed carnivorous, but they don't really eat people. They aren't that big. However, they can eat mice, bugs, and even lizards, frogs, and birds. It attacks its prey with lightning-fast speed and injects them with super potent venom. Within seconds, the victim is usually dead. Then the centipede can feast. But the most impressive feat that the Amazonian giant centipede exhibits is how it captures bats. It absolutely loves eating bats, and it does this in a crazy way. It goes inside of caves, scurries up the wall into the center of the ceiling, then hangs by its back feet like Spider-Man waiting for a bat to fly by so it can snatch it out of the air and eat it. These are some apex insect predators. Number 9. Electric eel. Electric eels feel like something that shouldn't actually exist on Earth. If you really break down the electric eel for a minute, it's basically a fish snake that can shoot electricity through its skin. This is not something that should occur in the animal kingdom or anywhere in nature. It literally doesn't make sense. But nonetheless, electric eels are real. However, according to National Geographic, they are not actually eels. These marine things belong to the knifefish family. They are an extremely dangerous species found only in the fresh waters of the Amazon. And as we all know, electric eels are named because of their electric charge. Electric eels are also pretty big. An adult can grow to be 8 feet long, which is much larger than almost any human, and they can weigh around 45 pounds. Inside the body of an electric eel are specialised electrical organs that together feature 6,000 miniature circuits called electrolytes. When the electric eel wants to, the electrolytes can generate a maximum electric charge of approximately 600 volts. Electric eels use their electricity to defend themselves against predators and to stun their prey, such as small fish, amphibians, and even sometimes birds. And while humans don't typically get attacked by electric eels, it can happen. The shock from an electric eel will not only cripple you if you are in the water, causing you to drown, but it might give you an immediate heart failure. Basically, you'll be paralysed and unable to swim, having a heart attack, and the electric eel might even start eating you in the middle of it all. Have you ever seen an electric eel? Have you watched it actually use its shocking power? What do you think? It seems like a power I would love to have. Let me know if you're jealous of this superpower down in the comments below. But don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There are lots more cool videos just like this one. Number 8. Green anaconda. Of course, the green anaconda must be on the list somewhere. It's arguably the most dangerous snake in the Amazon jungle. This is because they are the largest living snake in the world. A typical green anaconda can grow to be around 30 feet, but there have been cases of them growing to be even longer. They also weigh a ridiculous amount, somewhere around 550 pounds. The green anaconda is so heavy and so long that they actually have a hard time sliding around on the floor of the jungle. This is why they are typically found in swamps, marshes, streams, and rivers. They actually spend most of their time swimming up and down rivers, breathing through their nostrils and eyes, and eating anything they want. Anacondas are not venomous, but they don't need to be. They kill their prey by constricting them, squeezing the body until the prey stops breathing. Then, the anaconda doesn't even bother to chew. They just slide the person or animal they just strangled into their mouth and let it digest in their belly for a while. The good news for humans is that green anacondas mostly eat deer, crocodiles, and turtles. They don't really like to eat humans. However, if you find yourself alone at the edge of a river in the Amazon, keep your eyes open for an anaconda. There is literally nothing that can stop it from squeezing the life out of you once it gets its long, slithery body around one of your limbs. These snakes are incredibly dangerous. Number 7. Red-bellied piranha. Red-bellied piranhas are the most infamous fish in the rivers of the Amazon. They have a very bad reputation as being terrifying predators that basically act as meat grinders inside the water, ripping apart any flesh that dares get too close. And while they are pretty scary, this isn't really true. Piranhas are not actually capable of turning a river into a blender. It just doesn't happen. And some piranhas are even vegetarians. According to Life Science, there was a species discovered in 2013 that lives strictly on eating river weeds. There are other species as well, some that eat shrimp and worms, dead fish and live fish. But of course, we are talking about the red-bellied piranha. This is considered to be the most dangerous and aggressive piranha ever. And here is how they hunt. They do it in a pack. They spread out looking for food, and when one of them finds food, it will signal to the rest of the group. That is when the piranhas swarm. But they are very polite about it. You will often see one fish swim up and take a bite, and then move aside so another piranha can come and bite. This gives the illusion of them being a dangerous swarm, but they're really just polite carnivores. A single red-bellied piranha can eat at least 2.5 grams of meat per day. That's 1/8 of its body mass. Number 6. Arapaima. The Arapaima is one of the biggest and weirdest fish of all time. They currently live in the rivers of the Amazon and are considered some of the most dangerous monsters prowling those waters. What's really incredible about the Arapaima is that it hasn't changed in millions of years. Scientists believe it evolved to its peak stage millions of years ago and has not done a single thing since. These monsters of the river can grow on average to be 7 or 8 feet long, but the longest ever recorded was allegedly 15 feet and 440 pounds. That is a monstrous fish. But it still gets weirder. These fish actually have a modified bladder that acts as a lung. They require air to breathe. They go to the surface every 10 or 20 minutes to get a gulp of air. They have also evolved to be able to survive out of water for at least 24 hours. They are basically the ultimate fish. They also have an insatiable appetite. The Arapaima opens its mouth to create a vacuum that sucks in whatever is near. Considering how big these things are, they can suck a lot into their mouths. They usually eat fish, but they will digest anything that gets sucked into their throat vacuum, including insects, mammals, and even birds. This is not the kind of fish you want to get into a fight with. Number 5. Brazilian wandering spider. The Brazilian wandering spider is an actual nightmare. I know that some tarantulas are cute and cuddly, maybe a little poisonous, but not actually dangerous to humans. But the Brazilian wandering spider is just a nightmare. It's the deadliest spider in the world. They don't even need to build webs. They have evolved past all that. The Brazilian wandering spider instead spends its time wandering around on the jungle floor, eating whatever it feels like and killing indiscriminately. These 8-legged monsters are not secluded in Brazil either, so don't think you're safe. They also live in Peru, Ecuador, and Venezuela. The spider is nocturnal, meaning that it only comes out to feed at night. But in the daytime, they have a habit of hanging out under rocks, fallen logs, or in the dark parts of your home. And if you accidentally disturb the Brazilian wandering spider during its resting hours, it will bite immediately, aggressively, and repeatedly. They rear up on their hind legs and will attack you like their life depends on it. This might not be so bad, except that the venom from the Brazilian wandering spider contains horrifying neurotoxins. It causes swelling, incredible pain, immediate respiratory issues, and blurred vision. And if you don't get immediate medical attention, you will almost certainly die. This is almost always fatal for young children. And while there is anti-venom available, what are the chances of you picking that up if you're in the middle of a jungle? Number 4. Poison dart frog. This one might not even belong on the list. The poison dart frog is not a scary creature to look at. In fact, it's absolutely adorable. This little bright frog looks like something I would want to keep in my terrarium. However, according to National Geographic, the poison dart frog might just be the number 1 most deadly creature in all of the Amazon rainforest. Poison dart frogs can be a variety of vivid colours, including gold, copper, red, green, and of course blue. The most poisonous species is actually the golden poison dart frog, and it's estimated that a single little frog contains enough venom to put down at least 10 adult humans. The bright colours of the poison dart frog is actually an evolutionary warning signal for potential predators. Animals understand that bright colours mean stay away. If you even touch the frog with your skin, you can get the poison on you. If you were stupid enough to put the frog in your mouth, you would probably get muscular paralysis and die very quickly. But what's really cool is that if you have a poison dart frog in captivity, it's not going to be poisonous. They actually gain their poison from eating ants, centipedes, and termites, and also certain plants. And through all of these parts of their diet, they get an extremely dangerous poison that secretes out of their skin. Number 3. Jaguar. Believe it or not, there are not a lot of large apex predators in the Amazon rainforest. This is really a place that has evolved for insects, birds, amphibians, and of course plant life. Jaguars are one of the only big cats prowling around in the jungle. And while they are exotic, beautiful, and appear to be a little bit snuggly, they are definitely a scary predator. The last thing you want is to be hunted by a jaguar while you walk through the jungle. You would never even know it was stalking you. Jaguars have the strongest bite out of any big cat relative to their size. They can chomp through a skull with their massive front teeth. They are heavier than leopards, though they do look similar. The strangest fact about jaguars is that they even sometimes partake in hallucinogenic plants for a little psychedelic adventure. But the sad story is that jaguars are one of the most endangered species in the Amazon. Deforestation and human encroachment are putting an end to these beautiful and scary creatures, especially since jaguar paws and teeth are sought after for traditional Chinese medicine and even for making ornaments. The skin trade has gone down since the 1970s, but the voodoo nonsense medical trade is still booming. Number 2. Bullet ant. Let's talk about the one creature that might actually attack you on your next trip to the Amazon. Well, maybe not attacked per se, but you'll see. You are probably not going to be stalked and attacked by a jaguar. Brazilian wandering spiders are scary but unlikely to go near you. And you're probably not going to be swarmed by a group of red-bellied piranhas. What could happen is that a bullet ant falls on your head and bites you. This is definitely a thing that can and does happen. The bullet ant is huge, about the size of your thumb, and they can be found in big numbers in the jungle. Bullet ants are all over the Amazon, all the way from the rainforests of Nicaragua in Central America to as far south as Paraguay. They typically live around the bases of trees, but sometimes they fall out of branches and land on people who were just walking around minding their own business. And when the bullet ant stings you, you better be ready for some pain. These ants aren't lethal, but they do have the most painful insect sting in the world. It has been reported that being stung by a bullet ant literally feels like being shot. The name is apparently highly accurate, and the pain doesn't go away. The intense burning and agonizing torture lasts for around 24 hours. It's basically like getting a free trip to extreme discomfort and pain. To put it into a little perspective, it's estimated that the bullet ant sting is around 30 times more painful than that from a honeybee. Tribes will collect these ants and weave them into gloves that will be then placed on the hands of teenagers during an initiation ceremony. There they will dance in a circle, getting stung repeatedly on purpose and chant through the pain. Good news is that this sting, while it hurts like crazy, it does not have any long-lasting effects. It won't kill you, and after 24 hours you should be okay. Hopefully. Maybe a little traumatized. Number 1. Black cayman. The black cayman is one of the scariest beasts in all of the jungle. There are lots of them spread out throughout the Amazon basin in countries like Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. Now, let's talk about a bit of the confusion. Caymans look like alligators and crocodiles. You would not know the difference just by looking at them. In fact, not even I can tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile. They all look like big mean lizards to me. But according to recent research, the cayman is actually more similar to alligators than it is to crocodiles. But still, unless you know what to look for, you would never catch the difference. Basically, the black cayman can grow to be 17 feet long and they weigh around 1,000 pounds. Just like alligators and crocodiles, caymans are at the top of the food chain. They have no natural predators, which makes sense considering these giant reptiles are basically dinosaurs. And nothing hunts dinosaurs. Even jaguars and cougars will avoid any lake or swamp populated by black caymans. One of the only documented cases of a cayman being destroyed happened when a family of river otters took one on and managed to kill it. Never underestimate river otters. Number 10. The black mamba. The black mamba is not only one of the deadliest snakes in Africa, but one of the most feared snakes on the entire planet. The black mamba is the longest venomous snake in Africa and the second longest venomous snake in the world. The adult black mamba can reach an outstanding length of almost 9 feet and can slither across the ground at speeds of up to 12.5 miles per hour. Not only are they fast and venomous, but they are super aggressive. Black mambas will not hesitate to lash out and bite you right on your face. Despite their name, black mambas are not actually black. These snakes are typically brown or olive, with small black mouths and beady black eyes. They typically live in savanna, scrub, and in the hollows of trees. But they can also be found slithering around in people's homes. Unlike most snakes that might just bite you a single time, when the black mamba strikes, it does so 12 times in a single attack. That's enough venom pumped into your veins to kill over a dozen men within an hour. If you don't have instant access to anti-venom, the venom from the black mamba will prove fatal 100% of the time. This is not a creature that you're going to be walking away from alive. This animal is not to be trifled with. It's no surprise that the late great basketball legend Kobe Bryant received the nickname Mamba during his time in the NBA. What a namesake. Number 9. Great white shark. For centuries, great white sharks have been one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, swimming around the shores of Cape Town and feasting on unsuspecting swimmers. Of course, sharks don't actually eat that many people, but they are still very dangerous, and if you happen to get in a confrontation with one, you probably won't be walking away with both of your arms. However, a recent report from CNN claims that many of these fearsome predators are gone from the waters around South Africa. In particular, they have abandoned the famous Seal Island, which is one of the world's most notorious locations for meeting great white sharks. According to the local professionals, great white sharks have all but vanished. In 2012, there were many sharks around Seal Island eating fur seals. But starting in 2018, there have been absolutely no shark sightings. Marine biologists are saying it was likely a slow decline in the number of great whites, then a sudden drop and complete collapse. Now there are none. Whether the great whites will resurface in the coming years is anyone's guess. Why do you think these creatures have disappeared? Is it human presence? Is it global warming? Is it a decline in their prey? Let me know what you think could be behind the shift, because researchers haven't concluded anything definitive yet. Speak up in the comments. Then, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because there are lots of awesome videos being released around the clock and you won't want to miss any of them. Number 8. African lion. Nothing is more fearsome than the powerful African lion. And while these big cats don't typically attack humans, they have definitely been known to in the past. In fact, refugees from Mozambique who frequently cross through Kruger National Park in South Africa are often attacked and eaten by lions in the middle of the night. According to reports, lions are responsible for at least 10 deaths per year in Kruger National Park alone. And moving over into Tanzania, it has been reported that lions kill up to 70 human beings every year. What's really interesting about lions is that they are the only cats who live in groups. Tigers, cheetahs, and pumas all live as solitary animals, but lions live in large prides. Plus, an African lion can reach a pretty hefty weight of about half a ton. That's a pretty big predator to come charging at you in the middle of the night. The most gruesome accounts of man-eating lions came from 1898, back when construction was going on of the Kenya-Uganda Railroad. As the story goes, a pair of male lions began to attack the railway workers. Over the course of 9 months, they killed a whole lot of people. Luckily, that kind of savagery doesn't typically happen anymore. But still, lions are dangerous apex predators. Number 7. Nile crocodile. It's hard to look in the face of a crocodile and not imagine it trying to eat you. Unlike buffalo or hippopotamus that look relatively harmless, crocodiles look especially mean. Whether they're just lurking in the water or basking in the sun, they are always on the lookout for easy prey. They slither under the water with their nostrils flaring above the surface, just waiting for you to get near. Nile crocodiles boast incredible speeds, and they can launch themselves out of the water, snatch you into their strong jaws, and drag you back into the water in just a few seconds. In fact, crocodiles have the strongest bite in all of Africa. They even have a stronger bite than the famous hyena. A single Nile crocodile has a bite strength of over 3,700 pounds per square inch. That's enough to crush your bones. And get ready for some pretty scary figures. There are about 3,000 people per year killed by crocodiles in Africa, the numbers divided between Nile crocodiles and saltwater crocodiles. Almost all fatalities occur when people go to the riverbank or lakeshore to collect food or do their washing. Nile crocodiles are also infamous for attacking fishermen in their boats, both in and out of the water. These scavengers have no fear. Number 6. African elephant. It's hard to imagine an elephant going on a rampage and killing anything. Yes, elephants are enormous, but they are also gentle giants. However, don't let their calm demeanor fool you. Elephants have been known to become vicious and aggressive even when not provoked. The numbers of fatalities might even shock you. It's estimated that elephants kill roughly 500 people worldwide each year. Most fatalities happen because the elephant tramples their victim to death. Still, it's important to remember that in areas where the poaching of elephants still happens, they are much more aggressive. Elephants are not stupid, and they recognize when they are in danger. Plus, if you happen upon an elephant with a baby, they will protect their young at all costs. At certain times of the year, bull elephants are especially aggressive, as they are preparing to compete for mates. They can become violent without reason and are best avoided. You don't want to get in their way, or they might consider you a threat. The last thing you want is to be fending off a giant African elephant. As one of the biggest animals to have ever walked the earth, a single misplaced foot from one of these huge monsters could literally crush you into dust. A typical African bush elephant will weigh about 13,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight to put on a single foot, especially if you're under that foot. Number 5. Puff adder. The black mamba is one scary snake. However, the deadliest snake in all of Africa is the puff adder. This is an extremely sneaky serpent, and it's responsible for more deaths than any other snake in Africa. The reason it kills so many people are because it's widely distributed all throughout Africa. Lives in areas with a lot of people, it has extremely deadly venom, and it has a strange colour pattern that makes it nearly invisible to any passerby. An adult puff adder has enough venom to kill 4 to 5 men, and severe envenomations have a 52% mortality rate. Even though the puff adder kills more people in Africa than any other snake, it's still outranked by the deadly reptiles residing in Australia. But that's a story for another day. A puff adder typically grows to be about 3 feet long, and is extremely girthy for a snake. The only places in Africa where the puff adder doesn't live are rainforests and desert. But everywhere else on the continent they roam. They have enormous fangs, and a single bite produces enough venom in your veins to kill you almost instantly. The only good news is that they are not that aggressive. If you are approaching, a puff adder will probably lie completely still and wait for you to pass by. The problem is when you step on it. That will lead to an instant bite. If you are on a hike in Africa where puff adders live, I would recommend wearing some very durable bite-proof boots and pants, and keep a sharp eye out for these creatures. They can be very hard to spot. Number 4. The Cape buffalo. If I had to choose between fighting a lion and fighting a buffalo, I would probably fight the lion. Buffalo are some serious tough customers. They are one of the big 5 in Africa and are considered one of the most dangerous animals on the continent. They don't kill that many people every year, only about 200, but they are massive creatures. They can weigh up to around 1,500 pounds and grow to be almost 6 feet tall. When a buffalo is threatened, it will use its sharp horns to attack. This can result in a pretty nasty wound, especially if the sharp horn perforates your skin. Most animals know this and they don't mess with buffalo, especially not the enormous Cape buffalo. This is why it's reported the buffalo kills more people each year than they do other animals. Although I don't know, many a lion may have been trampled by a buffalo. Who would know? They also travel in large and intimidating groups, so you best watch out. Number 3. Black rhinoceros. Buffalo might be mean, but black rhinoceroses are like the tanks of the animal kingdom. Rhinos don't typically mess around. If the rhino smells you or anything it doesn't recognize, it's probably going to charge with its horn. Rhinos might not be able to see that well, as is evident from their weird habit of charging trees and rocks after mistaking them for potential threats, but they do have a remarkable sense of smell and hearing. Black rhinoceroses have horns made of a substance very similar to what your fingernails are made of. This is why even when a horn breaks off, it tends to regenerate. Black rhinoceroses will use their horns not only to fight each other, but also to protect their young from lions, hyenas, and crocodiles. According to National Geographic, these animals can weigh up to 3,000 pounds. That's double what a buffalo weighs. Unfortunately, humans are the only real threat to black rhinos. We have poached them basically to extinction, and they are seriously endangered at this point. Without intervention, it's unlikely these mean and ornery animals will be around much longer. Number 2. Hippopotamus. It's no secret by now how incredibly dangerous hippopotamuses really are. These enormous monsters are masters of the watering hole. They have been known to attack pretty much every animal and cause roughly the same amount of human deaths each year as crocodiles. Hippopotamuses are supposedly responsible for around 3,000 deaths every year in Africa alone. This is primarily because hippopotamuses constantly protect and defend their territories, often along the banks of rivers and lakes. And even when not defending their territory, female hippos are especially aggressive and can do serious damage. In terms of raw power, hippos can run about 20 miles per hour on land, which is fast enough to chase down just about any animal. If you're a person trying to outrun a hippo, it's just not going to happen. And when they get a hold of you, their massive 20-inch teeth will crush you like a bug. This is what allows them to easily thrash around crocodiles like chew toys. As a fun fact, their closest living relative is the whale. That's right, hippos and whales are basically cousins. Number 1. Mosquito. Last on the list today is the mosquito. Not only is the mosquito the deadliest animal in Africa, but it's the most dangerous animal in the world. In a report by The Independent, they claim that data shows mosquitoes at the top of the food chain when it comes to straight-up deaths. Starting at the bottom of the list, sharks kill about 6 people a year, snakes kill about 60,000 people a year, humans kill about another 580,000 humans per year, and mosquitoes are responsible for roughly 830,000 deaths each year. And believe it or not, this is actually a pretty low number. According to the World Health Organization, between 2000 and 2015, deaths from malaria fell 62%. That means that in a span of 15 years, about 6.8 million lives were saved. So, as you can imagine, all the years before 2000 saw a dramatic number of deaths each year just from mosquitoes. It's not the bite that kills you, but the horrible diseases carried in mosquitoes. Dengue fever is one of the leading causes of hospitalization and death among children in both Latin America and Asia, and the spread of malaria throughout Africa via mosquitoes is the deadliest phenomenon in the country. Number 10. Sharks. Topping off our list today of animals living in volcanoes is the deadly shark. Sharks are known for prowling almost every ocean in the world, and scientists have recently discovered that they're also hanging out inside of underwater volcanoes. This story takes us to the southwest Pacific Ocean, near the Solomon Islands, to a volcano named Cavachi. Its first recorded eruption was back in 1939, but it erupted as recently as January 2014. It's even considered to be one of the most active underwater volcanoes in the region, according to Forbes, and is nicknamed Cavachi's Oven after a local sea god. And even though this is an active volcano, it's also home to a unique group of sharks. These hammerhead sharks were filmed recently in 2015 swimming around inside of the volcano. This is a place where water temperatures are above normal and the acidity levels are ridiculous. How do they survive? The truth is that the sharks are not in much danger. Even in the case of an eruption, they can basically just swim away really fast without suffering any damage. Scientists have actually found that living near an underwater volcano can be beneficial, as the volcano supplies nutrients to the surrounding area and actually helps maintain the ecosystem. Because the volcano has made its own miniature habitat inside the massive ocean where food is scarce, it actually does make sense that the sharks would hang around there, hoping to get their jaws on some easy food. Number 9. Freaky lobsters. Lobsters are freaky enough as it is. If you look at a lobster and don't see a horrifying sea scorpion, I just don't know what to tell you. Lobsters are weird, but they get weirder. This story goes back 100 years to the waters around Australia. It all started on a tiny island called Lord Howe Island, when a British supply ship ran aground and dozens of black rats left the ship and began to feast on a bug native to the island, known as the land lobster. After about 30 years, the land lobster was gone. The animal was thought extinct, but then in 1964, a group of people climbing a nearby volcano called Ball's Pyramid found an insect that looked an awful lot like the legendary land lobster. But it wasn't until decades later in 2001 that researchers confirmed finding 24 of these weird black insects sliding around in the mud of the volcano. The researchers were pretty excited, as they had initially thought it was a completely new species living inside the cracks and crevices of the volcano. According to the story from USA Today, there are currently only about 30 adult land lobsters left living on Ball's Pyramid. This not only makes it an extremely rare insect because it lives on an actual volcano, but it also makes them one of the rarest insects on our planet. Currently, researchers are trying to bring the land lobster back to life, but it's so hard to get rid of those pesky rats brought over on English cargo ships hundreds of years ago. Number 8. Yeti crabs. At the very bottom of the ocean, there are hydrothermal vents that spew out extremely hot water into the icy sea above them, but it's only hot for a few seconds. After the water reaches a few feet, the temperature goes from scalding hot to freezing. And on top of that, the pressure in this area is so heavy that it could crush a normal person. Oh yeah, and there is literally no light. Nonetheless, this horrendous environment is home to something known as the Yeti crab. These hairy crustaceans were first discovered in 2005, according to the BBC, and they look exactly like the abominable snowman, only in crab form. Since the initial discovery, there have only been 5 species of Yeti crab found. But all of them live in this weird environment at the bottom of the ocean next to the hydrothermal vents. And while not your typical volcano, they are still fissures that expel heat, just like normal volcanoes. In any case, the Yeti crabs were discovered living all around the vents in the basalt rock at the bottom of the ocean. And while it may seem inhospitable to you, the water temperature down there is only about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The Yeti crabs basically live their whole life in a hot tub. They surprised researchers by draping their big hairy claws over the hot water vents like you or I would dangle our feet in the hot tub. These might be the most relaxing volcano creatures ever. Number 7. The fanged fish. The fanged fish is one ugly mother. It's also known as the scaleless blackfish, and it's only about the size of your fingertip. But these weird little fish are proving that life can thrive literally anywhere on this planet. Just recently, an Australian research team discovered the fanged fish living inside the warm and acidic waters near some underwater volcanoes. You can tell the fanged tooth fish right away from its translucent fangs and its tadpole-like body. But it wasn't the only creature that they found living in the area. There were lots of other fish, some of which might have been snaggle-toothed dragonfish. The team believes that all these fish are the result of larvae being swept out of ocean nurseries where Australian farmers grow fish, then thriving and growing up in the inhospitable waters around the nearby volcanoes. According to the chief scientist for the voyage, they had previously thought that when the larvae were swept out to sea from coastal estuaries, they perished. But this new discovery says that's not the case at all. The poor little babies that get swept out of the commercial fisheries have been thriving inside the waters of hot volcanoes. Number 6. Volcano worms. You might not have heard of the mud volcano. Most people think volcanoes spit out molten lava, hot ash, and all kinds of other toxic junk. But the truth is that there are lots of different kinds of volcanoes, and most of them are underwater. At the bottom of the Arctic Ocean are 5 active mud volcanoes. And just like the name implies, they spit out extremely warm mud. They also belch out methane gas. If you know anything about methane gas, you will know it's not something humans can survive breathing in. But that doesn't mean the inhospitable environment around these volcanoes doesn't support at least some kind of life. Living on these mud volcanoes are billions and billions of weird tiny worms. The worms survive without any light, and the story of their lives is pretty bizarre. They are known as Beaufort sea tube worms, and they are only about 8 centimeters long each. But they are related to annelid worms, which are found near hydrothermal vents under the ocean and can grow to be around 6 feet in length. These worms survive in completely pitch-black conditions under a lot of pressure and in water filled with toxic gases. But none of this bothers them. Without any eyes, without a stomach, and without a butt, they actually feed on these toxic gases. This is one of the most incredible discoveries ever. This creature literally survives by sucking in methane gas or hydrogen sulfide. Scientists aren't yet sure which one they actually feed on. Number 5. Volcano barnacle. We are all familiar with barnacles. But did you know that barnacles are indeed living creatures? A barnacle is a type of arthropod and is very closely related to crabs and lobsters. There are almost countless different variations of barnacles living in the ocean, with most of them living in shallow waters. However, there is something known as the pink volcano barnacle. It's a special species of barnacle that is surprisingly large and lives off the coast of California. While they don't actually live inside volcanoes, they are named because of their shape. There is no denying that these little barnacles look exactly like miniature volcanoes ready to erupt. What's really weird about this species is that they only live near California. Other than that, there isn't really much to be said about them. They are just cute little mini volcanoes growing on the side of rocks and stones under the water. Number 4. Hairy microbes. In 2014, an expedition to the Jaguar volcano near the Canary Islands resulted in the discovery of strange colonies of hairy bacteria living inside of a very inhospitable environment. This was 2 years after the volcano erupted and reshaped a massive patch of the seafloor. The researchers had to explore using a robotic submarine equipped with specialized cameras and high-tech machine arms for collecting samples. They originally thought that there would be no life considering the recent eruption, but they soon found living microbes. After genetic analysis of the samples they took, researchers discovered that the metabolic functions of the microbes enabled them to grow in hostile environments. While most organisms would be killed by the toxic hydrogen sulfides seeping out of the volcanic rocks, these weird organisms actually use it for energy. This is very similar to the worms living in the mud volcano. The scientists ended up naming the microbes Venus's hair because they look like strands of hair from the famous painting of the goddess Venus emerging from the sea. According to a researcher from the University of Delaware, none of the team are completely sure when the bacteria arrived at the volcano, but they do believe that they started colonizing the area once the temperature dropped. But where did these microbes come from? The volcano was extremely isolated and far away from any other place where similar microbes might be, and according to the research team, the microbes basically come out of nowhere. They believe that these microbes are always present in the water, but at such low levels they can't be detected. Then, when opportunity presents itself, the microbes explode in numbers. This goes to show that there is still an entire world that we don't quite understand. Number 3. Volcano shrimp. How would you like to eat some tasty volcano shrimp? Back in 2009, a group of oceanographers paid a visit to an active underwater volcano near Guam known as NW Rota 1. I know, it's a pretty lame name for a volcano, but the volcano itself is pretty interesting. It's constantly active, and one of the only submarine volcanoes that scientists have witnessed erupting. It's just erupting all of the time, like it's got a bad case of gas. But what also makes this volcano very unique is that it's home to a bunch of unusual creatures, including the volcano shrimp. The shrimp appear to have adapted to living life on the side of an ever-growing volcano. They are known as lohi shrimp, and they survive by grazing the bacterial filaments with their tiny claws. They stroll up and down the newly developed rock, feasting on tiny little filaments until they grow into their adult stage, at which point the shrimp become fierce predators. But it's a game of chance. The bacteria on the side of the volcano grows extremely fast, so there's always a food source, but the shrimp are constantly struggling to avoid volcanic eruptions. Every time there is a volcanic burst, you can witness massive clouds of these bright pink shrimp fleeing through the ocean. And when that happens, they get attacked by other marine life. But other marine life isn't so suited to these kinds of waters. When squid and other fish try to attack the shrimp too close to the volcano, they get a big blast of noxious gas and drop dead to the bottom of the ocean, where their corpses can then be feasted on by the shrimp. Number 2. Giant pink slugs. Let's move from small pink shrimp to giant pink slugs. This is something known as the Mount Capitar pink slug, and it's about as cute as any other slug. It has an extremely red colour that makes it look pink. Actually, it almost looks like if a tube of lipstick melted and then came back to life. But even though this is one of the most flamboyant slugs in the world, they live a pretty relaxed lifestyle. This is because they're stuck over 3,000 feet up on the sides of an ancient volcano in Australia. The volcano is named Narrabri, and it's located in the state of New South Wales. So, what do these giant slugs do all day on the volcano? The answer is not much. They sometimes slide out from their rocky hiding spots and slowly inch up rocks or up tree trunks where they feed on eucalyptus, lichen, algae and fungi. But they only do it at night. When the day rolls around, these giant pink slugs retreat back into their hiding spots and wait for the next chance to feed. It's believed that the slugs managed to survive the brutal fires in the national park in 2019 thanks to their hiding abilities. While the fire raged, the giant pink slugs were very deep under the rocks and 3,000 feet up. That's a pretty good defense mechanism if you ask me. And speaking of the fires in Australia, scientists are having a bit of a difficult time trying to figure out how many of these giant pink slugs are left, as they are so elusive. Much wildlife has been destroyed, and scientists are trying to figure out who's left and how many there are. Another very elusive species that scientists can't track very well is the platypus. But the platypus doesn't live on a volcano. Number 1. Giant rat. Just a few years ago, there was a new species of rat discovered living in the crater of a volcano in the country of Papua New Guinea. The discovery was made by a biologist working with the Natural History Unit of the BBC. And while the volcano in which the giant rat was found is technically extinct, it's still a volcano. The crater is about 2.5 miles wide with giant walls about half a mile tall. This big hole in the ground has trapped a whole ecosystem of creatures inside a world of their own. It's basically a bowl where all kinds of cool critters have been able to evolve in peace. This has been helped by the fact that humans very rarely enter the area. The first to sight the new giant rat was a tracker from a nearby indigenous tribe. A local biologist was then informed, and eventually the BBC showed up with their cameras. And yeah, this is one weird rat. It is gigantic. It weighs almost 4 pounds and measures almost 3 feet from nose to tail. It's being called the Bosavi woolly rat, and it's one of the largest in the entire world. Even stranger is that the rat was almost completely tame when it was found. This is a sign that animals inside the isolated volcanic crater were completely unfamiliar with humans. Because they never met humans before, they had no reason to be afraid of them. But that will probably change pretty quickly. Number 10. Sabertoothed deer. Everyone has heard of the sabertoothed tiger, but have you ever heard of the sabertoothed deer? It looks like a bloodthirsty deer that you would find stalking around in your yard waiting to bite your leg off, but it's not. These sabertoothed deer are actually docile herbivores. And even though they are part of the musk deer family, they aren't deer. They don't have antlers. Instead, they have evolved very intense canines that are actually tusks. They have tusks just like an elephant or a boar, but only the males do, and they use them to fight off rival males once mating season comes around. And while you think they might use their long tusks to impress the ladies, they don't. The male saber-toothed deer has an unusual gland located near its hindquarters. According to Mental Floss, the gland can secrete a pungent chemical all throughout the animal's territory. And while humans find the smell to be absolutely disgusting, female musk deer find it tantalizing. It's true, animals and their pheromones are quite frankly gross. Imagine excreting offensive odours all over the forest to try and attract your mate. Number 9. Sea turtle. This one is absolutely shocking. To look at the photo of the inside of this creature's mouth, you would never believe what it is. The mouth is full of what appear to be sharp spikes. It looks like a cave of death, but it's actually just a sea turtle. A perfectly ordinary sea turtle, which some people might find super adorable. It just so happens to have a jagged hole of death and destruction inside its mouth. Sea turtles have hundreds of giant spikes that they use for teeth, with a little leather tongue at the bottom. It's really a mouth unlike any other in the animal kingdom. Who needs jaws or rows of teeth when you can have spikes all along the roof of your mouth and going down into your throat? I would hate to be the animal that gets trapped in there. The leatherback sea turtle is the largest living turtle in the world and the third largest living reptile. They begin life as tiny little babies flapping across the sand and over the years grow to be around 6 feet in length. In one day, the leatherback sea turtle will eat around 73% of its body weight in jellyfish. It snacks on jellyfish like you or I might binge on chips or ice cream. But the key to understanding the mouth of the sea turtle is that those spikes aren't technically teeth at all. All those spikes inside of its mouth are known as papillae, and they go all the way down its esophagus and into its gut. Can you guess what they're used for? Yeah, for eating jellyfish. The spikes help prevent the jellyfish from floating back out of the turtle's mouth. All those little spikes force the jellyfish down into the belly of the turtle. This is probably the coolest, yet the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. Number 8. Goosander. The goosander is the one duck you don't ever want to bite you. While they may look innocent and peaceful, take a look inside its mouth. The goosander has a long and narrow bill filled with saw-like teeth. The teeth are made for gripping fish, but don't think the goosander won't take a bite out of your hand if you get too close with that loaf of bread. The name goosander is actually Welsh and translates to serrated duck. According to the Scottish Wildlife Trust, these ducks first colonised Scotland in 1871 and have since become pretty standard all across the United Kingdom. The goosander isn't actually dangerous, but it's a little unnerving to look into the mouth of a tiny duck to see rows of razor blades staring back at you. Since when did birds grow teeth? How is it fair to have a beak and teeth? Did you know about the goosander? I didn't. What do you think of it? It seems more dangerous than the normal wild ducks we see around our neighbourhoods. What would the world be like if all ducks had razor-sharp teeth in their bills? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But first, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so you can catch all the amazing videos you might have missed. Number 7. Camels. One of the most terrifying mouths in the entire animal world belongs to the camel. Have you ever looked in a camel's face? They have yellow, snaggled teeth. They are always gurgling and spitting. It looks like every camel is born with a terrifying case of gingivitis. Not only do they have some of the worst teeth out of any animal, but they are also aggressive, mean, and dangerous. Nothing showcases the terror of what a camel can do with its teeth quite like the incident reported by The Independent back in 2016, when a camel bit its owner's head clean off. This happened in the Indian state of Rajasthan during a heatwave. Temperatures reached an outstanding 109 degrees Fahrenheit. The owner of the camel tied the animal up, left it there with its legs bound all day in the blistering sun, and in the evening when the man remembered to untie the camel lunged and literally bit his head all the way off. The camel lifted the man by his neck and flung him like a doll. Well, like a headless doll. In any case, camels have some scary teeth, but it's really their awful attitude that makes them even more terrifying than any other animal, no matter how big the teeth. I personally prefer horses, but camels are significantly better equipped for the desert. Number 6. Gelada baboon. If you have ever come face to face with a baboon, you will know how terrifying its teeth are. This is particularly true with the Gelada baboon from the mountains of Ethiopia. They live in the Simien Mountains and mostly hang out eating grass. But it makes you wonder why a primate that eats grass has canine teeth the same size as that of a lion. They are absolutely horrifying. A single bite from one of these baboons would be like sticking an ice pick through your hand. The male baboons actually yawn to show off their huge teeth to other males. This is typically done to show which baboon is dominant, and it's done before feeding and any time when it gets a little too tense among the group. But wait, these ferocious baboons have an entire communication system dependent on yawning. Researchers aren't exactly sure what all the yawns mean, but the baboons appear to communicate friendly interactions by yawning, and they appear to synchronize whatever activity they're doing by spreading their yawns throughout the group. They signal the quality of their relationship by yawning, they let the others know who is in charge by yawning, and they let each other know who is friends with whom. It's pretty bizarre, like a secret yawning sign language only displayed by these special baboons. Number 5. The chainsaw shark. The helicoprion was one of the most savage fish that's ever lived. Mind you, it was around 270 million years ago. The helicoprion has been extinct for quite some time, but it still deserves a prominent spot on the list for its freaky teeth. There is no other animal like it. The helicoprion literally had a buzzsaw in its mouth. It's hard to even describe the terrifying teeth that this prehistoric ratfish had. Just looking at the fossils is boggling. It had something known as a tooth whirl, and it was used just like a saw. The teeth pulled prey deeper into its mouth, while other teeth pierced and cut, and even more teeth hooked additional prey and dragged even more into its mouth. Its teeth were almost like a conveyor belt. Imagine having a circular set of spinning teeth inside your mouth. I mean, how did this even happen? According to an article from Men's Journal, the helicoprion mostly fed on cephalopods, ancient squid and octopus, and its teeth were specially designed for shocking the cephalopods to eat them more easily. There has been no other creature ever discovered with this kind of mouth. It's a one-of-a-kind evolutionary feature. Number 4. Hagfish. Let's take a look at the hagfish for a minute. This is arguably the most disgusting animal in the ocean. It looks kind of like an eel, or maybe like a long pink worm. It even kind of looks like a discarded tentacle. It comes equipped with 4 sensory mechanisms around its mouth that help it to find food, but where this thing gets really weird is when it finds food. The hagfish drills into its victim like some kind of parasitic worm. Even though the hagfish doesn't have jaws, it has 2 rows of structures in its mouth with rows of tooth-like points made of something known as keratin, which it uses to burrow inside its prey's carcass. They are also able to bite off huge chunks of food while they feast on carrion or live prey. But it's the appearance of their teeth that is so terrifying. Its face just kind of splits open like a disturbing vampire from a horror movie, revealing monstrous teeth powerful enough to actually dig into an animal's skin so it can eat the flesh from its inside out. Number 3. Penguins. Penguins are one of the most unique animals in the world. They are birds, but they swim, and even though they swim, they mostly live on land. They waddle around all day in tuxedo-coloured fur, squawking and laying eggs. They are extremely strange, and according to the Smithsonian Magazine, there are between 17 and 20 different species of penguin living on the planet today. But what you might not know is that inside the mouth of a penguin is a terrifying death trap. Penguins are not friendly animals, and they're not actually that cute when you get close to one. Penguins are carnivores and feast on fish, crabs, squid, and anything else they can catch, and they do this with a grotesque set of teeth. Well, they don't actually have teeth, but they do have fleshy spines that line in the inside of their mouth to help guide their food down their throat. But if you look closely, the fleshy spines really look like a solid block of sharp teeth in the middle of its beak. While penguins definitely aren't very threatening, take a look inside a dirty penguin mouth and try not to shriek in horror. Number 2. The pacu. The pacu is creepier than it is terrifying. It actually makes me a little uncomfortable to look at the pictures of this South American freshwater fish. It's typically found in rivers and streams in the Amazon, but they have been found as far east as Papua New Guinea. But we're not here to talk about where the pacu lives. We're here to talk about its human teeth. That's right, the pacu has a set of teeth on it that looks exactly like my own teeth, only straighter and a little cleaner. And even though the pacu is related to the piranha, they are worlds apart. The piranha is carnivorous, but the pacu is an omnivore and mostly eats vegetation. And while the piranha have very sharp teeth, pacu have square, straight teeth that look exactly like ours. They use their teeth to crush nuts and fruits, and sometimes to eat other fish. Sound familiar? The pacu's favourite foods are fruits and nuts that fall from trees and into the rivers of the Amazon. There are even some reports that pacu have accidentally attacked the gonads of male swimmers because they mistook them for food in the water. The pacu actually earned the nickname ball cutter after rumours that it had castrated some local fishermen in Papua New Guinea. These are so far just rumours, but the nickname has stuck, and it's better to be safe and enter the water with a swimsuit than sorry. Number 1. Human babies. The most terrifying teeth in the world belong to an animal that doesn't even have teeth in its mouth. Of course, I'm talking about the human baby. While on the outside, a human baby may look like an adorable little angel, but beneath the skin is something so terrifying you will scream when you see it. Before we lose our baby teeth, where do you think all those other teeth are kept? They are stored inside of our jaws, above and below the other teeth. The appearance turns into something very unsettling, with multiple rows of teeth just hanging out inside the skull. If you look at an X-ray or a skull of a child before losing its baby teeth, you wouldn't even think it was human. It doesn't look natural, and it's actually given me nightmares ever since I first discovered it. So, I thought I would share my horrifying revelation of the human body with all of you. Enjoy the creepy images of all our weird teeth. Number 10. Gorillas save lives. Gorillas may look big and mean, and some of them definitely are. But an incident back in 1996 showed that some gorillas have compassion even for humans. It all happened when a 3-year-old boy fell into the gorilla enclosure at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. The child fell 20 feet to the ground and was knocked unconscious. Then, a female gorilla named Binti Jua, whose name means daughter of sunshine, picked the child up and protected him from the other animals. She did this while carrying her own infant on her back. This was a dramatic show of maternal care, as the mother gorilla actually carried the small boy all the way to the entrance, where staff could safely get him out of the enclosure. Because this happened back in 1996, there is obviously no viral footage of it. However, it was captured on home video. Fast forward 20 years, and this same gorilla is still living in the Brookfield Zoo, according to the Daily Mail. And the daughter of that gorilla who had been clinging to her mother's back during the dramatic rescue now has a daughter of her own. As for the boy, in 1996 he had spent 4 days in the hospital, but was later released no worse for wear. This gorilla story was republished recently after the incident in the Cincinnati Zoo, when another young boy climbed up the barrier, crawled through the bushes, and fell into the gorilla enclosure there. In this recent incident, video footage shows the gorilla in the enclosure dragging the child by their ankle while people screamed and shouted. Of course, in the incident, the gorilla was Harambe, and the zoo response team actually shot the gorilla and killed it to protect the small child. What do you think of their response? There is still controversy today about whether the zookeepers were correct to shoot Harambe to save the small child. Let me know your opinion in the comments below. Then, be sure to subscribe if you like this video, since there are more coming soon, and you won't want to miss them. Number 9. Mila the beluga whale. Saviours come in all shapes and sizes. Even a whale can save the day. Take the story of Mila the beluga whale, who saved a diver from certain death just recently. A young woman was in the middle of a freediving contest when disaster struck. She had no breathing equipment and had dived down more than 20 feet into extremely cold Arctic waters. Then, when the woman tried to return to the surface, the freezing cold from the water had crippled her. She couldn't kick off with her legs and was in immediate danger of drowning. This is when Mila the beluga whale came to the rescue. It was as if the whale could actually sense that the woman was paralyzed and in danger. The beluga whale quickly swam up, grabbed the woman by the leg with her mouth, and pushed her all the way to the surface of the pool. According to an official from the scene, Mila the whale is a very sensitive animal and often works closely with humans. Judging by this incredible act of compassion, I would say beluga whales are much more in tune than people give them credit for. And for that matter, it seems like animals of any species are still able to transmit some degree of empathy to each other. If whales were dumb, Mila would have simply watched the woman drown and then maybe eaten her, but instead she saved her. Number 8. Lucky pig. Everyone needs a lucky pig. Not only are pigs adorable and super smart, but some pigs save lives. Take the heroic pig named Lucky that saved its family from a devastating fire. This happened after a fire broke out in the family's mobile home early on a Sunday morning. The pig didn't really do anything extraordinary. According to the family, Lucky normally woke them up in the morning, but when the fire broke out at around 4:40 a.m, the pig woke the family up by squealing and running around. Apparently, the pig began to scream. He was jumping up and down and running to the door, then running back into the room with the family in it and hitting them really hard to try and wake them up. Finally, the pig managed to wake up the woman of the house, who immediately realized that her whole room was full of smoke. A few minutes later, and the woman had gotten her 2 grandchildren out of the house, along with Lucky the pig, and firefighters were able to arrive and quickly douse the flames. It's true that these people lost their home and everything inside got burnt to cinders, but at least everyone is alive. And it's all thanks to their beloved pig. The pig probably could have run off and saved its own bacon, but it was heroic and made sure it woke the whole family up so they could get out too. And this isn't the only story of pigs saving lives. They might be up there with dogs in terms of being loyal pets. Number 7. Rescue rabbit. A rabbit is probably the most unlikely hero ever. Nobody would ever expect a tiny little rabbit to save anyone's life. However, according to a story from the BBC, one man's rabbit saved him from a coma. The man's name is Simon, and he comes from the UK. As far as the story goes, Simon passed out while watching television because of a diabetic attack. Lucky, he had been watching TV with his pet rabbit. When Simon fainted, the rabbit jumped onto the couch and began to thump furiously on his chest, as if she knew how to give him CPR. Because of the rabbit's strange behaviour, the man's wife suddenly noticed something was wrong and was able to quickly call an ambulance. The woman told local news that she was actually embarrassed that the rabbit knew her husband was slipping into a coma before she did. Apparently, the rabbit does live in the house but is not allowed on the furniture. But when Simon passed out, the rabbit threw the rules out of the window and jumped onto the furniture to begin thumping on his chest. Because of this quick action, the man's wife saw what was happening and phoned the ambulance. It could very well be that this little rabbit saved the man's life. This is pretty incredible considering the couple had only had the rabbit, whose name is Dory by the way, for 3 months when the incident occurred. Number 6. The parrot saviour. We are getting all kind of strange animal saviours today. Next on our list is a parrot who had been honoured by the Red Cross for saving a toddler's life. This all happened during breakfast one morning in November. Everyone was having dinner when the parrot began screaming, "Mama, baby," over and over again. Apparently, the toddler at the dinner table had started to choke on their food. It was in a brief window of time in which the mother had left the room just for a second. To notify the mother of what was happening, the parrot raised the alarm. It flapped its wings and screamed in actual words, "Mama, baby," and this caused the mother to rush back into the room just in time to find the toddler turning blue from choking. The Heimlich maneuver was quickly applied and the toddler was saved. If it hadn't been for the parrot, who knows how it would have turned out in the end. But because this parrot is obviously a real-life hero, the toddler still lives. The Animal Lifesaver Award ceremony was held by the Red Cross in Denver, in which the parrot was the guest of honour. Number 5. The dogs from 9/11. The biggest heroes on the list for today are the 9/11 rescue dogs, most of which were Labradors and Golden Retrievers. All the first responders from that day are heroes, and so are the roughly 100 search and rescue dogs who scoured Ground Zero for survivors. But out of all 100 of those dogs, in 2011 there were only 12 of them left. On that fateful day, the dogs worked tirelessly to find as many people as they could trapped alive beneath the rubble. The story of these fantastic animals has since been compiled into a book called Retrieved, in which the story of these four-legged heroes is told through photographs and memories. And the photographs are absolutely stunning. It's a collection of stories and first-hand accounts of that day, along with striking images of the brave pups who were back then in their twilight years, long since retired. Unfortunately, since it's been around 20 years since the attack, the remaining rescue dogs are long gone. But their memories live on through portraits and the people that they saved, as well as in the memories of their owners and friends. Number 4. Goat saves family. Say what you want about goats, but they are way smarter than we give them credit for. Goats are fun, sprightly, and very loyal pets. A young girl, only 10 years old, was given a pet goat for her birthday. Her father was not super excited about it, but since the goat went on to save the life of everyone in the family, the father's outlook has changed. The girl named her goat Speedy, And only 2 days after Speedy arrived in their home in Arkansas, it proved itself to be a real hero. This happened while the young girl was sleeping in the living room with the goat. Suddenly, Speedy woke her up out of nowhere by jumping all over her and acting crazy. Then, the little girl noticed smoke. She ran to her parents' bedroom but could hardly see or breathe through all the thick smoke. There was actually fire coming in from outside of the windows. It turned out that the garage was on fire and the whole house was burning. The girl managed to wake up her parents, and the entire family scrambled out from an open window and made it onto the front lawn. According to the news reports from Huffington Post, the fire department showed up very soon and extinguished the fire. While everything in the house was obviously destroyed, the family was completely okay, and it was all thanks to their goat. You might say that Speedy made a speedy decision that saved the lives of everyone in his new family, and only 2 days after he arrived. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. Number 3. Dog defeats snake. Dobermans are great dogs. They can be vicious, they can be sweet, and they can be fiercely protective. If you ever want a dog that can protect you and your family, you definitely want a Doberman. There is no better example of this than a story from a few years back, when a Doberman saved a toddler from a deadly snake attack. This happened in Australia, near the city of Cairns. The child was only 17 months old when she was playing in the garden of her home. It was while she was playing that the small child came face to face with the king brown snake, the third most venomous snake in the world. As you can imagine, this would not have ended well for the child. The snake was primed and ready to strike, and that was when the Doberman jumped into action. The Doberman's name is Khan, and he saved the child's life by literally snatching her in his jaws and throwing her over his shoulder like a doll. And he did it just in time. The snake lashed out, missed the child, and Khan the Doberman was bitten instead. Luckily, the family got the dog to the vet just in time. Anti-venom was given to the dog, and I'm happy to say that Khan made a full recovery. The family is now calling him Khan the Wonder Dog. Number 2. Compassionate baby elephant. It's not every day a baby elephant saves your life, especially when your life isn't in danger. This story comes to us from the Save Elephant Foundation in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Derek Thompson, the co-founder of the entire foundation, was splashing around in the water and called out to the baby elephant, whose name is Kam La, when the elephant misinterpreted the calls as cries of distress. The baby elephant charged into the water, sheltered the man with her body, and used her trunk to safely get Derek out of the water. Of course, Derek wasn't actually drowning, but the rescue attempt was not in vain. It just goes to show how much love the little elephant had for that man. So far as protectors go, you can't really do much better than having your own personal guardian elephant. According to CNN, Derek actually helped rescue Kamla and her mother back in 2015. You might say the baby elephant now owes the man a life debt. Since the incident, the man and the elephant have developed quite the amazing bond. He has been accepted into the herd. The foundation has so far rescued over 70 elephants, which are currently roaming free around the park. Number 1. Stray cat saves baby. We often credit dogs with being heroic, but what about cats? Cats may be kind of aloof, and oftentimes rude, but this story out of Russia shows that cats can be heroes too. The story begins pretty tragically. A newborn baby was abandoned inside a box and left to die in the hallway of an apartment building. Someone literally just left their baby in a box, and because of the freezing cold, the baby would have undoubtedly frozen to death. A stray cat named Marsha then came along out of nowhere, climbed into the box with the freezing infant and kept the child warm for hours until somebody came along and found them. Residents in the block of apartments eventually came upon the poor baby curled up with the cat in the box after being alerted by the baby's crying. According to the locals, they found the cat licking the baby's face and trying to keep him warm. Luckily, the baby had only been outside for a few hours, and thanks to the cat, he was not damaged by the unfortunate experience. The baby was taken away in an ambulance and checked over at the hospital by medics. Since the incident, the cat has become royalty and is treated with reverence by the residents of the nearby apartment buildings. Police launched a search to try and find the identities of the baby's parents, but as of 2015, no leads were made. Let's just be thankful that the warm cat came along when it did. Do you know any stories of humans being saved by an animal? If so, sound off in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and come back soon for more fun videos. Have you ever saved an animal, be it an insect, a mammal, or any other type? Tell us about it.